Hello guys, welcome back to our anime moment. Guys, please like the video and subscribe to my channel. Today is explanation of Martial Universe Season 10 Part 75 based on novel. So let's start. Chaotic Demon Sea. Northern Underworld Sea Region. This was a vast and endless ocean, and there were many clouds floating lazily in the sky above. The sunlight shone through the clouds, causing the surface of the ocean to appear bright and glittery. It was a quiet and peaceful sight. However, this silence did not continue for long, as the space in the sky suddenly became distorted. After which, silver light emerged, before three figures appeared from out of nowhere. A sea breeze greeted them. Lin Dong lifted his head and looked at this familiar-looking ocean. Promptly, a look of reminiscence flashed across his eyes. Back then, he arrived at this place after he was forced to flee the Eastern Xian region. After which, in order to get his revenge, he trained bitterly with all his strength. At that time, he experienced many dangerous trials on this seemingly endless ocean. Fortunately, he managed to survive. When he first arrived at the Chaotic Demon Sea, he was as ordinary as a rock and was hardly noteworthy. However, by the time he left, his name had spread across the entire Chaotic Demon Sea. Now, when he came back to this ocean, with his current strength, he no longer had to look up to anyone. The young man, who was once hunted and forced to flee for his life, had undergone a metamorphosis and soared to the skies. Chaotic Demon Sea. Lin Dong, has returned. Lin Dong lifted his head and let out a long howl. His howl was just like thunder as it rumbled across the surface of the ocean and spread into the distance. When Ying Huan saw Lin Dong's excited expression, she gave a gentle smile before she asked, "Back then, did you come here after leaving the Eastern Xian region?" Lin Dong inhaled a deep breath of air. Then, he nodded with a smile. Who could have imagined that he was once forced to act as subservient as an ant when he first arrived at this place? If not for his wits, he would have likely died in this ocean. You must have had a difficult time, am I right? Ying Huan used her icy pretty eyes to stare at Lin Dong before she softly said, "Although I missed you terribly during those 3 years, you must have had a hard time too." She could sense the complicated emotions Lin Dong felt towards this place. Therefore, she was able to guess that he must have experienced numerous life and death situations here. At times, perhaps even he did not know whether he could return to the Eastern Xian region alive. Ying Huan involuntarily bit her lips gently when she thought of this. Promptly, she chided herself for putting up an attitude when they met for the first time after Lin Dong returned from this ocean. After all, even though she had a hard time, but what about him? Who knew what he had gone through? After all, he was used to hiding it beneath his smile, and he did not allow others to realize it. When Lin Dong saw the gentle emotions flowing within Ying Huan's eyes, he felt touched in his heart. Promptly, he extended his arms and hugged her delicate little waist. Then, he smiled and said, "I am a man. There are some burdens that I naturally have to shoulder. Big brother Lin Dong. In the past, who offended you in here? Let's head over there and destroy them," Qingtan said, while her large eyes contained some murderous intent. Though she remained obedient and pampered in front of Lin Dong, she was ultimately the palace master of the Darkness Palace. Moreover, she came out from the Darkness Judgment Hall, and the blood that covered her small fair hands was sufficient to cause one's heart to shudder. "I don't need you to avenge me." Lin Dong smilingly flicked Qingtan's snow-white forehead. After which, he surveyed his surroundings before he muttered, "I wonder which sea region of the Chaotic Demon Sea are we in?" Although Lin Dong was able to travel from the Eastern Xian region to the Chaotic Demon Sea in a short period of time by relying on the spatial ancestral symbol, the Chaotic Demon Sea was extremely vast and it was impossible for him to accurately pinpoint his location. "Let's walk around and take a look." Lin Dong shook his head after he failed to pinpoint his location. After which, he dragged both ladies before he swiftly flew forward. The Chaotic Demon Sea was extremely vast and each sea region was huge. Moreover, the sea region that they were currently in seemed to be a fairly remote one. In fact, even after the three of them flew for over a dozen minutes at an extremely fast speed, they were still unable to spot a single person. Just as Lin Dong was fretting over this matter, Ying Huan suddenly pointed her fair delicate hand towards the west. There are people over there. Moreover, there are also Yimo fluctuations. Lin Dong looked in that direction, but he was unable to detect anything. Promptly, he felt slightly startled in his heart. It seemed like he was increasingly unable to fathom Ying Huan's strength. It's just that I am extremely sensitive towards the Yimo fluctuation. When she realized that Lin Dong was shocked, Ying Huan gently held Lin Dong's hand and said. Lin Dong nodded. At the moment, it was not a good time to talk. Hence, he grabbed both ladies, before a silver light flashed. Instantly, they appeared 30 miles away. With the spatial ancestral symbol, their current traveling speed was clearly far superior compared to before. Along the way, Lin Dong tore through the empty space a couple of times. This continued for a couple of minutes before he finally stopped. Then, he stared at his front, only to see that there were over a dozen large ships traveling rapidly across the ocean. Meanwhile, black clouds rolled behind those large ships and the evil demonic aura caused the sky to darken. The devil clouds quickly caught up with those large ships. After which, countless Yimo charged forward and rained down on those large ships like rain droplets. Battle cries subsequently sounded, before miserable screeches also sounded in waves. However, their resistance was clearly to no avail. Within a short period of time, 3 large ships were turned into a bloodbath, before a rich bloody stench spread across the sky. Lin Dong stared at this scene from afar. Meanwhile, he saw various flags hanging on those large ships. They should be some merchant ships. Merchant ships? He wondered if the merchant ships of the Gu clan were amongst them. Lin Dong's heart was trembling as he carefully surveyed the place. Then, he was shocked when he realized that there was a flag with the character Gu hanging on a large ship at the front. There is actually a merchant ship from the Gu clan amongst them? It seems like this place should be near to the Heaven Wind Sea region. Lin Dong frowned. Then, he swung his sleeve before silver light flashed and the 3 of them once again vanished. The people on the huge merchant ships were scuttering. Meanwhile, many of their faces were filled with fear as they stared at the devil clouds churning over from all directions. Sharp cries of despair sounded in a wave-like fashion. There were dozens of members from the Gu clan clustered together at the front of the merchant ship of the Gu clan. Meanwhile, their expressions were slightly pale. Nonetheless, compared to the rest, they were fairly well trained. At the very least, they were still holding onto the weapons in their hands. Meanwhile, there were also Yuan power surging on the surface of their bodies. Big Brother Yunqian, what should we do now? A member of the Gu clan looked at the devil clouds that were quickly approaching them. In fact, even his voice was trembling gently. At this moment, the members of the Gu clan were looking at the middle of their group. At that spot was a handsome man. Currently, he was looking at the desperate situation in front of them with an ugly expression on his face. Those creatures are far too powerful and we cannot stop them. He mused for a moment before he clenched his teeth and spoke decisively. Split into groups and escape in the small boats. Standing beside him was a young lady wearing a light green dress and she looked like a lovely young lady. When she heard his words, a bitter smile appeared on her face. Big Brother Yunqian, it's not as though you have not witnessed how fast they are. It's impossible for us to escape. Currently, Guya was no longer that timid young girl from before. She had a pretty face and she had an outstanding disposition even amongst the top members of the Gu clan. Gu Yunqian's body stiffened after he heard those words. Then, he looked at the panicking members of the Gu clan around him. Finally, he sighed miserably. Even after we managed to charge out from the martial gathering island with much difficulties, we are still unable to escape this calamity. The surrounding members of the Gu clan began to despair. The many unexpected changes that occurred in the last month made them feel as though they were in a dream world. Who could have imagined that the entire chaotic demon sea would actually descend into this state? Suddenly, a deafening rushing wind sound was swiftly transmitted from behind them. Following which, a devil cloud had already caught up to them. Meanwhile, within that devil cloud, countless brutal blood-red eyes were staring at them. A devil figure walked out from within that devil cloud. With a look of derision, he stared at the merchant ship from the Gu clan. After which, he licked his lips while bloodthirstiness slowly swept forward along with a monstrous demonic aura. When Gu Yuntian's group saw this sight, their originally ashen expressions became even paler. This devil figure was likely comparable to an ultimate samsara stage expert. Hence, how could they possibly fight against him? Are we truly fated to die here today? Gu Yuntian muttered. Standing beside him, Guya gritted her silver teeth tightly. Meanwhile, her small hand, which was holding onto a long sword, was trembling gently. Everyone around her had a look of despair. Guya? Just as they had sunk into despair and were waiting to die, a somewhat surprised voice was suddenly transmitted from behind them. When they heard that voice, everyone was stunned. Then, they quickly turned their heads only to see three figures appearing out from nowhere. You. Guya looked at the youthful figure standing right at the front. First, she was startled. Soon after, a shocked yet joyful look appeared on her small face. Big brother Lin Dong. Lin Dong? Gu Yuntian was also startled. He turned to look, only to see a young man staring at them in midair with a smile on his face. Who else could it be beside Lin Dong? Why are you here? Lin Dong smiled at the Guya duo and asked. While he spoke, he also took a glance at the devil cloud in front of them. Big brother Lin Dong, hurry up and leave. Guya had also recovered her senses at this moment. Immediately, the joy on her small face disappeared as she hurriedly said, hurry up and go. These devils are extremely powerful. Quick, leave! When Lin Dong saw Guya's anxious expression, he chuckled. However, instead of escaping, he landed at the front of the ship. Then, he spoke to Guya with a smile. It seems like we are fated. The first person I met when I first arrived at the chaotic demon sea was you. The second time around, it is also you. Guya smiled bitterly and shook her head upon seeing this. Big brother Lin Dong was quite a smart chapter. However, why was it that he had suddenly become so stupid? Couldn't he tell that they were in a desperate predicament currently? Sigh, brother Lin Dong, it has been a while since we last met. Forget about it, it is pointless to say anything now. To be able to die together, I guess we must be fated. Gu Yuntian sighed. Meanwhile, the devil clouds had already swept over, and even if Lin Dong wanted to escape, there was no time to do so. I do not wish to die. Lin Dong grinned and shook his head. After which, his eyes looked at the devil clouds before he said, you guys afraid of those things? Lin Dong smiled and extended his hand while he spoke. Then, he clenched his hand. Suddenly, thunderbolts began to gather in the sky, which was originally bright and clear. Finally, they transformed into a 10,000 feet large giant lightning hand, before he smacked those devil clouds. Bang bang bang. Wherever that lightning palm swept past, the devil clouds would exploded instantly. In fact, the countless Yimo present within were also caught by the lightning and were turned into ashes immediately. That lightning hand flashed past before it finally disappeared. After which, the deafening screeches in the sky suddenly stopped. Meanwhile, the various screams from the many merchant ships around them also ceased. Everyone lifted their heads in shock. At that spot, countless Yimo had turned into ashes before they scattered away. In fact, only the strongest devil figure remained standing, and he was also in complete shock. It looked as though he had yet to recover from the sudden change that took place in front of him. Of course, he was not the only one that was completely stunned. In fact, even the expressions of Gu Yuntian's group froze. This ocean, which was extremely chaotic initially, had become completely silent at this moment. It was quite a comical sight. The surface of the ocean was completely silent. A sea breeze blew over and gradually washed away the bloody scent from before. Meanwhile, on the dozens of large ships on the ocean, there were countless individuals staring in shock at the sky. Clearly, they had yet to recover from that sudden change. Those ruthless devils, who were butchering them previously, were all dead. How did this happen? Some people turned their heads with much difficulties, before they exchanged glances with each other. All of them were at a loss. I never expected there to be a Yimo general left. Lindong completely ignored the ocean, which had turned silent, as he turned to look at that completely stunned Yimo general in the sky, before he smilingly said, Big brother Lindong. Guya and the rest began to recover their senses. Then, they slowly turned around and stared at Lindong with stunned eyes. Their mouths moved before a somewhat dry voice was emitted. Was this done by you? It's no wonder they were completely stunned. After all of them witnessed how incredible Lindong was back at the Marshall Gathering Island. However, he was merely someone who stood out amongst the younger generation. Although he had also revealed his domineering strength back at the Flame Divine Hall, there was still a distinct gap between him and an ultimate Samsara stage expert. However, that attack from before was something that even a Samsara stage expert could not unleash. It has only been 1 year since they last met. How did Lindong become so powerful? Let's finish off that fellow first. Lindong smiled. Then, he turned his attention towards that Yimo general in the sky, before a cold glint flashed across his black eyes. The Yimo general in the sky suddenly recovered his senses. With shock in his eyes, he stared at the large ship of the Gu clan, before he cried out in a sharp voice, Brat, how dare you kill members of my Yimo tribe? Are you courting death? Ha ha, I have even slaughtered your 9-seat king. Even less needs to be said about minions like you. Lindong said with a sadistic laugh. What did you say? Suddenly, the eyes of that Yimo general shrunk. When he stared at Lindong, who had a smile on his face, an uneasy sensation abruptly emerged within his heart. Immediately, his eyes rotated before powerful demonic aura erupted. While that demonic aura spread, his body turned into a black light before he quickly fled. He had actually chosen to flee? Above the ocean, when the crowd saw that the Yimo general was actually withdrawing without putting up a fight, their jaws nearly fell to the ground. This was a super powerful individual that could match up to a Samsara stage expert. In fact, such a person could be considered as an overlord even across the entire chaotic demon sea. Yet, he was actually such a wastrel? Was it because of that man? Some of them secretly turned their heads to look at that skinny figure standing at the front of the Gu clan's ship. Just how powerful must he be? Even before he made a move, his enemy had already withdrawn in fear. With an indifferent expression, Lindong stared at that fleeing Yimo general. Then, he slowly extended his hand before he gently clenched it. The moment Lindong clenched his hand, everyone could see that the distant space had suddenly become distorted. After which, it collapsed. Coincidentally, that Yimo was right in the middle of that collapsed space. Immediately, that frightening pressure blew his body apart. A sharp miserable screech sounded before a stream of demonic aura escaped from that collapsed space. However, even before he could escape, a black hole was formed. Then, that black hole rotated before it devoured him. The space recovered and that black hole disappeared. That Yimo general, whose strength was comparable to an ultimate Samsara stage expert, had completely vanished. The ocean was completely silent once again. Lindong withdrew his gaze before he slowly lowered his hand. Then, he looked at Guya's group, which was completely speechless, before he laughed and asked, What are all of you doing here? Guya was the first to recover her senses. With a strange expression in her eyes, she glanced at Lindong and said, We were being chased by these Yimo all along and we ended up fleeing to the northern underworld sea region. Fortunately, we met Big Brother Lindong. Or else. Is this the northern underworld sea region? Lindong nodded. If he was at the northern underworld sea region, he was not far from the Heaven Wind Sea region. It's no wonder he ended up encountering them. Brother Lindong, thank you very much. Gu Yuntian had also recovered his senses. Immediately, with gratitude on his face, he cupped his hands towards Lindong. Meanwhile, there was some respect in his eyes. This was because after witnessing the previous scene, he knew that the current Lindong was no longer the same as before. Lindong smiled and waved his hand. Then, he mused for a moment before he said, I wish to head to the Marshall Gathering Island. Can you guys bring me there? The chaotic tower was located at the Marshall Gathering Island. Therefore, he must first head to the Marshall Gathering Island in order to help the Chaos Master. Marshall Gathering Island? When Ji Yuntien heard Lin Dong's words, his expression changed slightly, before a trace of fear rose within his eyes. What is it? Lin Dong involuntarily asked when he saw his expression. Big brother Lin Dong, currently, it's not a good idea to visit the Marshall Gathering Island. That place is like a land of death. Guya bit her lips and said. We fled from the Marshall Gathering Island. Lin Dong frowned. It seems like the Marshall Gathering Island was already under attack. Big brother Lin Dong, you were away for a long time and aren't aware of the current situation in the chaotic Demon Sea. 2 months ago, many devils like those from before suddenly showed up in the chaotic Demon Sea. They were extremely powerful and everywhere they went, no faction could stop them. Moreover, they were also extremely cruel and wherever those demonic aura passed, nothing would remain. Guya said. Our Heaven Wind Sea region was also affected. Initially, the 3 great caves and the 5 big clans formed an alliance. However, they ended up suffering a massive loss in their first clash with those devils, and the army subsequently collapsed. Lin Dong nodded. The devil prison was indeed frightening. Therefore, how could the factions in the Heaven Wind Sea region alone compete with them? Being crushed was well within expectations. After that, we retreated and guarded the Marshall Gathering Island. As those devils approached, the chaotic tower on the island suddenly unleashed a barrier to protect the entire island. This helped to prevent the island from being attacked by those devils. When news spread that one could gain protection if one was at the Marshall Gathering Island, various factions from the Heaven Wind Sea region swarmed towards it and gathered on the island. However, this ended up attracting even more of those devils. Right now, the Marshall Gathering Island is completely surrounded and it is impossible to enter. We found an opportunity to escape amidst the chaos. When she mentioned this, Guya's eyes turned dim. Elder Sister Mingqi and Ji Yang are still on the island. Once that defense barrier is broken, it is likely that everyone on the island will die. A look of despair began to appear on the faces of the surrounding members of the Gu clan. After all, everyone from their Gu clan was gathered on the Marshall Gathering Island. Therefore, if the island fell, it was likely that their Gu clan would perish. Lin Dong nodded. That defense barrier was likely created by the Chaos Master. However, he was currently at a critical juncture in his recuperation and it was clear that he was unable to unleash his full strength. Moreover, the reason why those Yimo around the island chose not to attack was likely because they were waiting for powerful individuals to arrive. I wish to go there. Lin Dong looked at Guya's group and laughed. If you guys are unwilling to go to that place, you guys can simply help me by drawing a sea map. Big brother Lin Dong, I will lead you there. Guya clenched her teeth before she said. Little Ya. Ji Yuntien was startled upon hearing this. Currently, the Marshall Gathering Island was in a dire state, and just getting close to it would mean certain death. Nothing will happen with Big brother Lin Dong around. Guya shook her head as she looked at Lin Dong. From her words, it was clear that she had great confidence in the latter. Standing beside Lin Dong, Ying Huan and Qing Ten glanced at Guya in a suspicious manner. Finally, they turned and looked at Lin Dong. When Lin Dong detected this, he involuntarily coughed dryly. After which, he nodded and said, in that case, you shall follow me to the Marshall Gathering Island. Someone has asked me to protect a person over there. Protect a person? Guya was startled. The Marshall Gathering Island was a place that belonged to their 5 big clans. Therefore, who was Lin Dong going to protect? An elder within the chaotic tower. Lin Dong grinned. However, he did not explain it in detail. Chaotic tower? Guya's group was startled. Soon after, they came to a faint comprehension. The chaotic tower was exceptionally mysterious to begin with and even their 5 big clans were unable to fathom it. Moreover, could that defense barrier that originated from the chaotic tower be related to that mysterious elder? We are pressed for time. Let's hurry to the Marshall Gathering Island first. Brother Yuntien, you should look for a safe place to hide. You can return once the crisis on the Marshall Gathering Island is over. After which, Lin Dong did not say anything more as he glanced at Guya. When he saw her nodding her head, he waved his sleeve. Subsequently, a silver light was emitted before it wrapped around them. That silver light flashed and the space became distorted. By the time that silver light disappeared, the four of them had already vanished. Ji Yuntian looked at the four of them, who had vanished, before he involuntarily sighed. Meanwhile, a flicker of hope rose in his heart. Currently, Lin Dong's abilities were powerful and mysterious. If he could really resolve the crisis on the Marshall Gathering Island, their Jiyu clan would be able to survive. Hopefully, you truly possess the ability to resolve this crisis. With Guya leading the way, Lin Dong did not stop during the subsequent journey. Along the way, he saw some Yimo roaming around. However, he simply finished them off with a flip of his palm and did not stop because of them. With their current speed, they reached the Heaven Wind Sea region within 2 hours. Upon entering the Heaven Wind Sea region, Lin Dong felt that the demonic aura ripple in his surroundings had suddenly become a lot denser. In fact, there were even dark winds blowing across the surface of the ocean. Lin Dong's group once again ripped through space. A few minutes later, they gradually slowed down before they stared at the scene in front of them with a grave expression on their faces. Monstrous demonic aura swept over from the horizon, while layers of devil clouds permeated the sky. Meanwhile, countless sharp screeches were continuously emitted. Moreover, the frightening demonic aura caused monstrous waves to continuously churn on the calm ocean surface. Lin Dong looked past that Yimo army, before he spotted an island deep within. Meanwhile, that island was enveloped by a deep yellow energy barrier. Lin Dong's eyes peeked through that energy barrier and it was possible for him to vaguely see an ancient stone tower on that island. That was the Chaotic Tower. The massive light barrier was just like a giant inverted bowl placed down from the sky. After which, the entire Marshall Gathering Island was covered by it. The light barrier was deep yellow in color and it was a thick and heavy color. It gave off an indestructible sensation. Currently, with just a cursory glance, it was possible to see that every spot on the Marshall Gathering Island was packed with people. Regardless of whether it was near the ocean or on the island itself, every inch of it was filled with people. However, their faces were all filled with fear and dread. With horror in their eyes, they looked outside the light barrier. At that area, the sky was dark and there were many devil clouds floating in the sky. Meanwhile, it was possible to see countless devil figures shuttling through the devil clouds, while deafening sharp sounds spread into the distance, stirring monstrous waves on the surface of the ocean. The demonic aura continuously pressed down on the deep yellow light barrier, causing some ripples to appear. When the crowd saw this sight, their hearts began to shudder in fear. This was because they knew that this light barrier was their final line of defense. If it was shattered, they would be completely exposed to the fangs of those Yimo and would have no hope of survival. At this moment, in a building situated in the middle of the island, the mood was extremely stifling. Many people were seated within that building, and all of them had dark and gloomy expressions. That energy light barrier seems to be weakening. Amidst that stifling atmosphere, someone suddenly spoke softly. However, his words caused everyone's eyelids to twitch involuntarily. Everyone should try to pitch in. What should we do now? A white-haired old man was the one who spoke. Currently, he was frowning tightly. Meanwhile, two lovely and tall beauties stood behind him. They were Ji Mengqi and Ji Yang. What else can we do? Besides camping at the Marshall Gathering Island, what else can we do? Seated opposite them, a grey-robed old man coldly said. Meanwhile, a man stood behind this elderly man and he was also rather familiar looking. It was Wei Zhen from the Wei clan. In that case, you can simply wait here and die. The old man from the Jiyu clan glanced at him before he said in a faint voice. Jiyu Tong. If my Wei clan cannot escape, do you think that your Jiyu clan can do so? That grey-robed old man became furious upon hearing his words, as he cried out. Everyone in the building shook their heads helplessly after they saw that the two of them were arguing again. Can the both of you pipe down? What is the point of arguing now? At the most prominent spot within this building sat three figures. They wore different clothes, but they had the most say. This was because they were the cave chiefs of the three great caves in the Heaven Wind Sea region. There was also a familiar-looking man amongst these three great cave chiefs. It was Wu Xian, the chief of the demonic wind cave. Back then, he had a grudge with Lin Dong. However, as of now, his expression was extremely gloomy because of the predicament that they were currently in. The Yimo outside the Martial Gathering Island are very powerful, and we are likely no match for them. Wu Xian glanced outside the building. In the distance, he could see the monstrous demonic aura outside the light barrier. If we want the situation to change, I'm afraid that we can only rely on that elder within the chaotic tower. The chief of the Heaven Wind Cave sighed and said. Everyone within the building looked towards the five big clans after his words sounded. After all, the chaotic tower was managed by them all along, and no one had ever realized that there was actually such a frightening existence within the chaotic tower. When they saw this, the clan leaders of the five big clans shook their heads bitterly. The leader of the Jiyu clan, Jiyu Tong, smiled bitterly and said, "In the past, though we were able to enter the chaotic tower, we could not reach the final level. However, we were unable to enter the tower ever since that deep yellow light barrier appeared. It seems as though that elder does not wish to be disturbed." The leader of the Shu clan nodded and said, "Why don't all of you try again?" Wu Xian thought for a moment before he said. Currently, they were all out of options. However, he was unwilling to give up on this final chance. The leaders of the five clans sighed upon hearing this, before they nodded their heads. However, all of them knew that this was likely a pointless move. When he saw this depressing atmosphere, Wu Xian exchanged glances with the chiefs of the two other great caves. Then, he sighed quietly and shook his head. Is there no way we can escape from this calamity? Bad news. Just as everyone's heart sunk into despair, a man suddenly ran in frantically before he quickly shouted, "It seems like someone is trying to barge into the Martial Gathering Island. Currently, they are attempting to enter the island." Everyone was startled upon hearing this. There was actually someone who dared to come to the Martial Gathering Island now? Was he courting death? With shock in their hearts, the crowd left the building and looked into the distance. Outside the deep yellow light barrier, all of them could spot a couple of figures standing in the sky. Meanwhile, demonic aura were churning around them as a large number of Yimo had begun to surround them from afar. Is that little Ya? And Lin Dong? When Jiyu Mingqi and Jiyu Yang looked at the few figures outside the light barrier, they were initially shocked before they quickly exclaimed, "Lin Dong?" Everyone was stunned when they heard this name. In fact, the expressions of the Wei clan members turned ugly. Clearly, they remembered this young man who had once caused their Wei clan to suffer a huge loss. Wu Xian also frowned slightly. Clearly, he still remembered this name. "Grandpa, that is Lin Dong. He once helped our Jiyu clan. Hurry up and let them in. Otherwise, it will be troublesome if the Yimo surrounds them," Jiyu Mengqi said anxiously. The clan leader of the Wei clan hurriedly spoke after her words sounded, "No way. Notwithstanding the fact that this energy light barrier only allows people to leave and not enter, we do not know what they are trying to do. Moreover, you should also know just how cunning the Yimo are. If they are merely Yimo in disguise, can you shoulder the responsibility if we allow them on the island?" Many experts around him nodded upon hearing this. After all, it was best not to take any risks at this moment. The expression on Jiyu Mengqi's pretty face changed. Then, she stared angrily at the clan leader of the Wei clan. This was because she naturally knew that this fellow was merely looking for an opportunity to create trouble. At this moment, Jiyu Tong could only sigh. After all, their Jiyu clan did not dare to do something like this, which would make them the common enemy of everyone here. This Wei clan was truly despicable. Jiyu Mengqi could only stomp her foot upon seeing this. Then, she cried out loud, using Yuan power to wrap around her clear voice before she delivered it to the outskirts of the island, "Lin Dong, all of you should hurry up and leave. Be careful of the Yimo." Lin Dong, who was standing outside the island, surveyed his surroundings after he heard Jiyu Mengqi's voice. Immediately, he understood what was going on. After which, he gave a faint smile. It seems like those fellows were as irritating as before. There is no need. I will come in by myself. Lin Dong smiled at the island before he said. When they heard his words, every Wei clan member chuckled involuntarily. After all, even the Yimo were unable to break this light barrier. Yet, Lin Dong claimed that he could enter? He must be dreaming. Lin Dong, you should hurry up and get lost. Wei Zhen cried out loud. However, his face was filled with ridicule. He could see that the Yimo were rapidly surrounding Lin Dong. At this moment, it was likely that the latter could not flee even if he wanted to. Standing beside him, Wu Xian frowned. This was because he vaguely felt that something was amiss. Therefore, in order to be on the safe side, he did not mock Lin Dong. While Wu Xian frowned, a bright silver light suddenly flashed outside the light barrier. Then, Wu Xian's expression changed drastically when he felt that the space was becoming distorted, before shock gushed into his eyes. Within Wu Xian's shocked eyes, he saw that the space in front of him had become distorted. In the next moment, a silver light flashed before four figures appeared from out of nowhere. This? The crowd around them stared at the four individuals, who had suddenly appeared, before their pupils shrunk. Meanwhile, their eyes were all filled with shock. Lin Dong had actually managed to enter? Are you the one who asked me to get lost? After he appeared, Lin Dong's dark black eyes stared at the stiff-looking Wei Zhen before he laughed faintly. For some unknown reason, Wei Zhen felt horror surging from within his heart, after he was being stared at by Lin Dong. Immediately, he hid behind the clan leader of the Wei clan. Lin Dong, what are you trying to do? Though the clan leader of the Wei clan felt that something was amiss, he still cried out in a stern voice. Noisy. Lin Dong's eyes turned cold. He flicked his finger before a force wind shot forth. In the next instant, the clan leader of the Wei clan shook. Immediately, he spat out a mouthful of blood while his body flew backwards in a miserable fashion. The crowd inhaled a deep breath of cold air upon seeing this. Meanwhile, Wu Xian's eyelids began to twitch rapidly. This was because the clan leader of the Wei clan had advanced to the Samsara stage last year. You? The experts from the Wei clan were all outraged when they saw that their clan leader was attacked. However, even before they could verbally abuse him, Lin Dong had already taken a step forward. Immediately, his frightening aura swept forward and enveloped the entire island. The terrifying pressure created by his aura caused the originally noisy island to immediately turn silent. Reincarnation stage? This time around, even Wu Xian could no longer hold back the shock in his heart, as he cried out involuntarily. Reincarnation stage? Standing above the building, the leaders of the various factions from the Heaven Wind Sea region were all startled. With shock in their eyes, they stared at that young man. He was actually a peak reincarnation stage expert. Ji Yu Tong was stunned. He had heard Ji Yu Mengqi and the rest talk about Lin Dong before. However, he merely thought that he was a junior from the younger generation. However, who could have imagined that this man, whom he perceived to be a junior younger generation member, was in fact a peak reincarnation stage expert? Beside him, Ji Yu Mengqi and Ji Yu Yang covered their lips in shock. Meanwhile, their pretty eyes were all filled with shock. Ha ha, it is actually Cave Chief Wu Xian. Lin Dong's eyes moved, before he turned to look at Wu Xian and laughed softly. Meanwhile, there was a playful tone in his soft laughter. When he realized that Lin Dong was staring at him, Wu Xian's body stiffened while cold sweat appeared on his forehead. Then, he laughed dryly, it is actually young brother Lin Dong. He was not a fool. Although he had touched reincarnation currently, he knew that there was still a massive gap between him and a genuine reincarnation stage expert. In fact, if Lin Dong wanted to make a move on him, it was likely that there was nothing he could do. Lin Dong smiled faintly and he hardly paid any attention to Wu Xian. All he did was to focus his attention on Ji Yu Mengqi and Ji Yu Yang. Then, he cupped his hands together and laughed, Miss Mengqi, Miss Ji Yu Yang. It has been a long time since we last met. Lin Dong ignored all the leaders present and only greeted Ji Yu Mengqi and Ji Yu Yang. His action was clearly somewhat inappropriate. However, owing to his frightening strength, no one dared to object. Instead, all of them lowered their heads, while their faces were all filled with fear and respect. The Ji Yu Mengqi duo exchanged glances, after which, they gave Lin Dong a sweet and beautiful smile. Meanwhile, their pretty eyes were all filled with joy. Lin Dong turned his head after greeting the two ladies. Then, he looked towards the stone tower in the middle of the island. However, this time around, he detected an extremely ancient and powerful aura radiating from it. The Chaos Master This video will end here.